Hi guys, welcome back. So this is the fourth video of the Sitemap crawler series, and in the first video we saw the entire approach using a diagram on how we'll approach the project. Second video we started creating the outline of all the functions. The third video we created a struct called SEO data and extract sitemap URLs function, scrape sitemap function, and the func main. And in this video we'll start with our user agents, and we'll create the function for random user agent. Then we'll also work on our make request function and our scrape page function. And so let's get started. Let's work with them on the way. So for our before I do all of that, sorry, I'll work on the import package. So here we'll have fmt, we'll have log, we'll have net/http. fmt if I want to print out stuff, which I do. Log if I want to log out errors. Net/http to make requests. And I want to work with strings, so I'll use the strings package. And since we'll be using math.random function for selecting a random user agent, so I'll use math/random. I'll use time, and I'll also use github.com/puerquito/bio/goquery. So in case you don't know what goquery does, it basically takes a response, like let's say you make a request to a page, you get a response. It converts the response into a readable document that Golang can read. And I have a series, actually a video series of two videos on my channel. It's called building a simple scraper using goquery. Goquery is a very famous popular library. You can go check it out. So goquery is the one that we'll be using here. I use it very, very often, and it's a very, very simple to use library. That's why I use it. And so let's get back to our user agents. All right. So in our user agents, it's going to be a variable, and it's going to be a slice of strings. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll copy and paste a sample user agent for you right now here. I'll put a comma after that. So this is a sample user agent. So this helps us our server look like a browser when making a request to any website. All right, and like this we'll have 6 to 7 different user agents. I'll push this code on GitHub, and you can just copy and paste all the user agents, but for now I'm just putting one just to show you as a sample what they're going to look like. And then we have a function for random user agent selection. Okay, so it basically returns a string. So it's going to go through all these user agents and going to return select a random user agent, and it's going to return a string. Okay, so we'll say ran.seed time.now.unix. Sorry, this bracket doesn't end here, it ends here. And we'll take a random number. We'll say ran.integer percentage length of user agents. In short, what we're doing is we are just taking the random library, math/random library, and we're creating an int basically, and we're dividing it by the length of the user agents. So let's say if there are 5 or 6, so we'll divide by length, and it basically helps us select one of these basically. So if you say return user agents, so since you get a random number, and that random number is somewhere between the length of these user agents. Like let's say if these are 6 user agents, so 1 to 6 will be the value that you'll get. And so when you return something from user agents and you say that it's at the index of random number, so random number basically so it'll be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can pick up any value from there and then send back to you, right? So that's how basically selecting a random user agent works. Anyhow, now what we want to do is we want to work on our so last time we made this function, right? It was called is sitemap. Yeah, we talked about is sitemap. So let's build this function, right? This sitemap. All this function does is just checks if a particular page is sitemap. So how do you come to know if a particular page is sitemap? It basically needs to have a .xml format. So that's all we'll do, right? So we'll say func is sitemap. It takes URLs in the format of slice of strings. It returns a slice of strings, 2 slices of strings it returns. Okay, and we'll say sitemap files is a variable which will be equal to slice of strings, and will be empty for now. Take a variable called pages, which will again be an empty slice of strings. And here what we'll do is we'll range over the URLs that we have received. So all the URLs that we receive in our sitemap function, you can see, we'll range over them. So we'll say range URLs, and for ranging we'll have to use for, and for the iterator I'll use a blank character, and here I'll use page is equal to range URLs, and we'll take a variable called found sitemap true. So it's fmt dot println sitemap comma page. It says sitemap files is equal to append sitemap files comma page. So we took the sitemap files slice and what we're doing it, whenever we find a sitemap, we append it to our sitemap files slice. Basically that's what we're doing, right? And but else if it's not true, then we'll append it to pages. So we'll say append pages comma page, and all we'll do is we'll return sitemap files from here comma pages. All right. So that's what we get here. So we get sitemap files and we get pages here, right? So in the last video, if things were not making a lot of sense to you, I'm sure everything starts making sense to you now. And as and when we'll keep creating all of these different functions, like for example now when we'll create make request function, the rest of the part will make more sense to you, and so on. All right, so now actually let's do that. So let's work on our make request function. But before make request, I think we should work on the scrape page function. So if you remember in the last video, we talked about scrape page function. So to scrape a page, you need to be able to crawl a page, and then we'll get SEO data from that page. Okay, so let's just create a simple function here. It takes a URL which is string, and it takes other things. Let's not talk about those, it'll confuse you. And it returns some things. The scrape page function returns some things. So one thing that it returns is an SEO data and error, right? So the SEO data that we want, it will return from here. And so what this function does is it calls another function called crawl page, and which returns a response and an error. So if error not equal to nil, we'll return SEO data. I'll keep S capital just to be consistent everywhere. Comma error, and here we'll say here what we'll also do is we'll pass the parser interface. So we'll say comma parser of type parser, it's an interface, and here we'll say parser dot get SEO data, error not equal to nil, return SEO data, comma error, otherwise return the data nil. So if there is an error, which means error not equal to nil, we'll return an empty slice of strings called SEO data, or otherwise and also the error. Otherwise we'll just return data and nil for the error. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll actually work on our function make request. All right, so in our extract sitemap URLs function, we were calling this function called make request. Let's work on that. Let's work on the make request function. So all this function does is it just makes requests to the pages, right? So we'll say URL string and http dot response comma error, and here we'll say http dot client. So to make requests we need http client, which that's why we're using the http package, as you can see here up here. And here we'll take a timeout of 10 into time.second. We want to delay between our requests so that we don't end up overloading the website, and this is why we're using the time package that we get from here, the time package. Okay, so the client that you get from here, we'll take it in a variable called client, so that becomes easy for us to access this client. And now we'll use the HTTP package again to make a request. So we'll say new request. The type of request that this function will make will be get requests. And here we'll say request error. All right, and let's set the header for a request. So when sending a request, in the header we can set who this request is coming from. So we're setting the random user agent using the random user agent function that we have just created. And if we get an error here, we can capture that. So we'll say if error not equal to nil, that means if error not equal to nil means that if there is an error, then it returns nil here, and it just returns the error. That's all it does. If all is okay, then we'll just make a request. So we'll say client.do, and in the brackets we'll say request, and whatever response we get, we're going to capture in the variable called response. If there is an error, so if error not equal to nil, we'll return nil and error. But if everything went all right, we'll just return the response and nil for the error. So this is what our make request function is all about. And I'm sure it's if you were having issues understanding a lot of things in the last video, I'm sure that everything makes a lot more sense to you right now, and this entire function is now much clearer, because I've shown you the sitemap function, I've shown you the make request function, and you understood why this is getting appended here. All of this makes a lot more sense, I hope. And as in when we keep building more functions, things will start making more sense to you. So since we've gone a little over time, what I'll do is I'll continue this in the next video. So do stay subscribed to this channel so that you come to know when the next video of the series comes out. And we have hundreds of Golang videos on this channel, so if you're learning Golang, then this is the right place to be. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next episode.